Yeah.
Hi, my name's Trey Fuller. Danny Fuller. Might have to be on the slide.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Gordy. Here to talk to you about pickling today. So what if I told you, everybody, that none of us, or most of us, probably wouldn't even be here today if pickling had not been invented to preserve food. You know, ever since I became a cook, I got into this, time-honored tradition of putting little vegetables or whatever you want in vinegar, or, in salt, and all of a sudden, a few days later, these delicious things comes out. So I'm here today to explain to you some of the history of pickling, some of the principles of how to do it, and how you guys can do some simple recipes by yourself at home. So just a brief history of pickling. Human beings have been pickling different types of vegetables as far back as 1000 BCE, which they found archaeological evidence of in the Middle Eastern region there. That stretches back as far back as that, and I believe it's one of the oldest ways of preserving food for storage. What you would do is take vegetables from your harvest and you would preserve them either in salt or vinegar to last you through the winter. This is why it's been so important to human development throughout history. And now this is almost true of all cultures around the world practice this tradition with many different styles and varieties of pickles all around the world. Here's just a few examples, pickles you might find in different regions. Here we have Korea, which is famous for kimchi and pickled garlic. Fun fact, actually Koreans eat the most pickles of any other culture in the entire world. Germany is famous for their sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage. American Southeast, we love our pickles here. Pickles, pig feet, okra, watermelon rinds are kind of traditional southern pickles. Here's one from France, cornichons, which are just little tiny gherkins is what they call them, which are pickled in white wine. Very traditional French pickle. So, how do you make pickles? What goes into them? Well, there's two different methods. Fermentation or vinegar or fresh pickles. Now, we'll start with fermentation here. Now, what it is a chemical process that happens with bacteria. And now you start with your vegetables or food or whatever, and you always use salt or a brine, which is salt water. And that's what starts the fermentation process. Now, fermentation is a controlled decomposition of food by bacteria. And what that means is a controlled environment, like a pickle jar. And what this happens is bacteria breaks down these sugars in the vegetables or the fruit or meat or anything. It turns it into lactic acid, is where you get that sour taste from the pickle. And it also produces CO2, which eliminates oxygen and gives you no oxygen environment eventually, and that's what preserves the food as well. And now you can use vinegar in the fermentation process, but too much will stop the fermentation process. I have an example up here, German sauerkraut, that's a fermented pickle. Vinegar pickles or fresh pickles are used mainly with vinegar. We can add obviously spices and sugar and things like that. But vinegar or acetic acid is the preservative, or citric acid, lemon juice, orange juice, and that's the preservative in the food. They're called fresh pickles because they don't take a long time to make. It only takes a matter of days for some things, as opposed to fermentation, which can take weeks or months. And most of the time salt is used as well, but fermentation does not happen because of the high vinegar content, like I said before, about fermented pickles. So, what do you need to make pickles at home? Well, vinegar, obviously. Now, there's a few types of vinegar you can choose from. We have most commonly used distilled white vinegar, white wine or red wine vinegar, apple cider, and rice vinegar. Now, to make sure that you're not going to kill yourself or get real sick from pickles, you need to use a vinegar that has at least 4% acidity to 6% acidity. Now, anything more than that is going to be really, really, really tart. You probably have to dilute it, and it's not going to taste good. But each type of vinegar has different qualities, pros and cons, and flavors. So we've got your distilled, which is very common. It's very harsh but a neutral flavor, and it doesn't discolor, and that's why people like to use it. So, your cucumbers will stay green, and it's great to use with sweet pickles. Like, you add a lot of sugar, that way it cuts out the neutral flavor, or the harsh flavor. Apple cider is fermented from hard cider, which is made out of apples. It's got a very mellow flavor, not like this over here. And it's also cool, it's the traditional medium for pickling, or historically for Americans in this country. Then you've got your white and red wine. Also has a very mellow flavor, but the thing about rice wine and also white wine and rice wine, which are similar in mild flavor, but they're very expensive. You only find small bottles at the grocery store. So, you know, if you want to use it for flavor, it's fine and it makes great pickles, but if you're looking to make a lot, big batch from your garden, I would stick with apple or distilled vinegar. Salt. It's pretty simple. As I told you, it's one of the key ingredients in fermentation, and pretty much pickles for flavor. But things you got to use a certain type. Now, you should always use kosher salt, or let's say canning or pickling salt, which is a coarse grained salt. And the thing is, like iodized table salt and different table salts have impurities in it, and what happens is that it can ruin the flavor of your pickles. It can make them look weird. It can also actually ruin the fermentation process, and you get bad pickles, which is not good for you or anybody else. So that's why you stick with either canning, pickling salt, or kosher salt right there. Okay, aromatics. So how do your pickles taste so good, not just like vinegar? Well, that's because aromatics are the herbs and spices that are used to get different flavors in pickles. And you know, you can use them in fermented pickles or any type of pickles, and they're used in a couple different ways. Over here, and they're herbs and spices. Some commonly used ones are we have dill, thyme, bay leaf, peppercorns of all types there, mustard seeds, and garlic are some of the most basic ones that you would use. And what you would do is, we'd stuff these in with your vegetables, and when you pour the brine over them, what happens is the essence or the flavors of those spices come out and into the pickles, and therefore you get bread and butter pickles or spicy pickles or things like that. So these are very essential to make your pickles taste good and kind of give it your own flair for your recipe. And the next issue is what you will need to can your own pickles at home, which was very simple. As I said, you saw the ingredients that I had, and I'm going to pass out a recipe for you all to have to take home so you can maybe practice this. But any sort of canning jars are great, and you have little mason jars or ball jars. There's a couple of brands. You're going to need a pot of boiling water and canning tongs, which I have out here for you to see. And after you've done your recipe, the canning process is pretty easy. You get everything sealed up in your jars there. Stick it in boiling water for about 12 minutes. And what will happen is you have a little pop top on this can here, as you can see. And if you press it and it doesn't click, that means it's made a vacuum seal. You let it cool at room temp, put it in the cupboard and enjoy. I hope you found this informative, and I hope you'll get a love of pickling like I have too. It's a great way to, you know, if you're a gardener, stretch your vegetables, you know, so you don't have to give them away. Not to mention, they're just delicious. Thank you very much.
You surprise me every time.